Mr. Walker, the same question to you. If nuclear weapons are used, how should the U.S. respond? You have 60
Well,
seconds.
first of all, he talked about standing up. You didn't stand up to Chuck Schumer when you could have got a helicopter company here of almost $1 billion. You let it go to New York. You didn't stand up then. You didn't stand up to Biden when he left American people and had 13 military soldiers killed in Afghanistan. You didn't stand up then. So what we can do is, Putin is a bully. And the way you beat a bully, you show strength. Well, Senator Warnock said he stood up. He not stood up to Biden. If he was standing up, he wouldn't have voted with him 96% of the time, which gave us an open border, which gave
has a point that he tries to make time and time again. I've stood up to the Biden administration so that they could keep open this Combat Training Readiness Center, stood with our congressional delegation to do that. I've worked across the aisle time and time to get good things done for the people of Georgia. I worked with a senator from Texas to build out I-14. I worked with a Republican senator from Alabama to help Georgia farmers get their products to market. I will work with anyone and stand up against anybody I need to stand up against to get good things done for Georgia. I work for the people of Georgia.
Sure, both of you have strong backing from your respective parties. Senator Warnock, a simple yes or no here. You will have a chance to explain, but I'd like a simple yes or no. Would you support President Biden running for a second term in 2024?
I've not spent a minute thinking about what politicians should run for what in 2024.
Is that a yes or a no?
The answer is I have not, and maybe this is difficult. Maybe this is difficult for people to understand because that's how politicians think. I think that part of the problem with our politics right now is that it's become too much about the politicians. You're asking me who's going to run in 24? The people of Georgia get to decide who's going to be their senator in 3 days.
Would you support a Trump 2024 run?
Yes, I would. And let me tell you, President Trump is my friend. Nothing to do with, has nothing to do with that. He's my friend. I won't leave my allies, which is what Senator Warnock and Joe Biden did in Afghanistan. They left their allies. They left their allies, and right now on a foreign stage, a lot of these people don't trust us no more.
Women find themselves in a range of circumstances. And this issue has been far too politicized. And we're witnessing right now the chaos that ensues as a result of that. And women right now who may be facing a miscarriage in some cases are wondering what will happen and how will they have to explain that. I think that's deeply problematic. There are enough politicians piling into the rooms of patients, and I don't plan to join them.
But just to clarify, in your opinion, God gave us a choice in regards to abortion.
It is apparent that God has given us a range of choices, and the people of Georgia have a choice right now about who they think should represent them in the Senate.
And may I have to respond?
Mr. Walker, we do have to move on to our next
topic. This will be very short, because he's correct. God gave us a choice. But also within the Bible, if you read the Bible more, God said choose life. In the Bible, it says, I give you a choice. Just like Adam and Eve had a choice, but they chose death.
Very quick, Mr. Walker, we need to move forward.
I think he wants to arrogate to politicians more power than God has.
All right, gentlemen, thank you. We're going to have to move on to our next topic, okay? Tina?
Okay. We are moving on, gentlemen, on the next topic. And
on abortion, I'm a Christian. I believe in life. And I tell people this, Georgia is a state that respects life, and I'll be a senator that protects life. And I said that was a lie, and I'm not backing down. And when you have Senator Warnock, people that would do anything and say anything for this seat, but I'm not going to back down because this seat is too important to the Georgia people for me to back down right now.
Thank you, Mr. Walker. Senator Warnock, since President Biden has taken office, inflation has reached levels that we haven't seen in 40 years. You've supported nearly every piece of legislation that this administration has pushed through Congress. Do you take any responsibility for the financial hardships currently that Georgians are facing? And you have 60 seconds.
There's no question that people are feeling pain at the grocery store, at the pump, at pharmacy counters. And while we are paying record prices, a lot of our corporate actors are seeing record profits in the oil and gas industry and the pharmaceutical industry, which is why I've stood up for ordinary, hardworking Georgia families time and time again. I passed the single largest tax cut contrary to what my opponent is suggesting, for middle and working class families in American history. And we passed the Inflation Reduction Act, which had two of my provisions. One, caps the cost of prescription drugs for seniors so they don't have to choose between buying medicine and buying groceries. And one caps the cost of insulin. He said he would not have voted for the Inflation Reduction Act, and I think he should tell the people of Georgia why he thinks they should have expensive insulin and why the pharmaceutical companies should be able to charge us whatever they like.
Well, first of all, may I respond? You know, I believe in reducing insulin, but at the same time, you got to eat right, because he may not know, and I know many people that's on insulin, and unless you have eating right, insulin is doing you no good. So you have to get food prices down, and you got to get gas down so they can go get insulin. And you continue to pat yourself on the back, but right now, families are starving. Right now, families are hurting, and they're hurting because of the bills and the laws you're passing right now.
Senator Warnock, I'll give you an opportunity for a
Listen,
rebuttal.
I meet people all the time in my church who are trying to manage their diabetes. I think the question is more fundamental than that. Why are the lines so long in certain communities and not others?
Senator Warnock, thank you. Mr. Walker, we move to you now. In 2020, Georgia became the epicenter for questions on voter fraud. We'd like to hear your thoughts in 60 seconds. Did President Biden defeat former President Donald Trump in 2020? Again, sir, you have 60 seconds.
Well, first of all, I need to mention that he said that SB 202, really it made it easier to vote and harder to cheat. And she mentioned that more people turned out for the primary. So you gotten good at in Washington not answering that question, because that was the question she asked you. And did President Biden win?
That is the question.
President Biden won, and Senator Warnock won. That's the reason I decided to run. Because we need a change in Washington. We need leaders that's going to stand up to foreign leaders. We need people that's going to stand up for people in Georgia. Because Senator Warnock, he went to Washington, but he forgot about Georgia. And I want to stand for the people of Georgia. He just mentioned he's standing for the people of Georgia, but can he tell me why he voted with Joe Biden 96% of the time if he was standing for Georgia? That tells you that he's for Joe Biden, I'm for Georgia.
Respect for choice. And because I have such a profound reverence for life, it's one of the reasons why I've stood up to address this issue of maternal mortality in our country. We lead all of the Western nations on that front, and black women are 3 to 4 times more likely to die even when they have the insurance and the income. Now, that's something government could actually do something about. And I joined with Marco Rubio of Florida to pass a bill to address maternal mortality. The women of Georgia have a clear choice as we're watching women die. Do you want a senator who wants to control your life, or do you want a senator who wants to save your life? Well, I want to save your life.
Well, what's funny,
We need
man,
to keep moving, Mr. Walker.
I have to respond to this.
Very quickly.
Because he told me Black Lives Matter. And if you think about it, Senator, in Atlanta, Georgia, there's more black baby that is aborted than anything. So if Black Lives Matter, why are you not protecting those babies? And instead of aborting those babies, why are you not baptizing those babies?
Mr. Warnock, or Senator Warnock, will you...
Senator Warnock, I turn to you first. As the number of shootings in Georgia and across the nation continue to rise, what should be done? What should the next step be to solve this issue? You have to answer this question, sir, and I give you 1 minute.
Well, I'm glad that we finally passed the first gun safety law in 30 years. And we did that on a bipartisan basis. I believe that this law will indeed save lives. And I'd like to see us work and see what we can achieve beyond that on a bipartisan basis. My heart goes out when I see the kinds of tragedies that we're witnessing all across our state, all across our country. And it's the reason why I have passed legislation to support law enforcement. I passed the largest investment in the COPS program in a decade. I introduced legislation called Invest to Protect that's endorsed by the sheriffs of Burke County and Scriven County because it supports some of our smaller law enforcement entities. So we got to stand up with law enforcement, but we've also got to create opportunity.
Senator Warnock, thank you. Mr. Walker, we're posing the same question to you, sir. In 1 minute, what should the next step be to solve gun violence?
Well, first of all, any law or bill passed that will affect anyone's Second Amendment, I'm not going to stand for and I won't support. But third, to hear Senator Warnock talks about supporting law enforcement is sad because he's called them names. And because of the name calling he's done, the morale is down, recruitment is down, only because of what he's done. He's empowered criminals to think they're better than the police. And because he believes in no cash bail, is releasing prisoners, he don't protect the border. Fentanyl is coming to this country and also into Atlanta. 70% of the drugs coming from the border goes to Atlanta, Georgia. And he talks about the police. I have more sheriffs that has endorsed me than anyone running in Georgia right now. And I even have some sheriffs here, they've endorsed me because they know I have their back, they're gonna have my backs.
One thing I have not done, I've never pretended to be a police officer, and I've never threatened a shootout with the police.
Well, and now I have to respond to that.
We are moving on,
I have
gentlemen.
to respond to that. And you know what's so funny? I am with many police officers, and at the same time,
Mr.
Pastor,
Walker, Mr. Walker,
no.
Mr. Walker,
When he
Mr.
said a
Walker,
problem with
excuse
the
me,
truth-
Mr. Walker,
when he
please,
said a problem
out of
with the truth,
respect,
the truth is
I need
here.
to let you know, Mr.
Yes.
Walker, you are very well
Yes.
aware of the rules tonight.
Yes.
And you have a prop.
Yes.
That is not allowed, sir. I
Yes.
ask you to put that prop away.
Well, it's not a problem. This is real.